Cool, thanks very much. It's great to be here. So we're going to talk today about converting established organizations into lean startups. So let's get this going. Right, so here's our backlog to get through. We're going to talk about the reason for change, how do we determine strategy, executing strategy, how to get started with a new way of working, and also things that we've learned along the way at NIB. Okay, Kodak. I don't know if you guys know the Kodak story, but I think it's a really interesting reason why businesses need to change the way they think. Kodak was a hugely successful company in the 20th century. In the late 80s, they actually had 90% of the photographic film market. But if you look at Kodak's share price, and this is Kodak's share price from the late 70s through to now, you'll see that they absolutely plummeted once they hit the 2000s. That was pretty much the advent of the digital camera, which Kodak was at the forefront of innovating, but they were so stuck on their existing way of making money, which was photographic film, that they didn't change and adapt. So you can see in 2007, they made their last profit, and that profit was essentially made out of patent litigation, which is not a great way to make money. And then in 2012, they actually went bankrupt. And they actually sold all their patents just recently to their competitors to get out of bankruptcy, and they've only just become solvent again. So this guy here, Keith Dodds from ThoughtWorks, he at an Agile Australia conference recently, he had a really passionate plea to everyone there that unlike, I suppose Kodak would like us to think of the Kodak moment as a quote for those guys, he said there's actually a new quote probably in town, which is, we make sure we don't get Kodaked, because these guys really did muck it up.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about us. So NIB, for those of you that don't know, is a health insurer. With the fourth largest health insurer, we've got about 8% market share, and we cover about 900,000 people. It's a Newcastle company, founded as Newcastle Industrial Benefits in 1952, so we've been around quite a while, and our head office is located here. We're actually the only health insurer listed on the ASX. Our biggest competitor, it's a free alternative in Medicare, so it's really hard for us to compete on price. But we've also got some direct competitors. We've got Medibank Private, which is a government organisation, and then Bupa, which is a multinational health insurer. Both of those companies have about 30% market share each, so they're much bigger than us. And most recently, over the last 3 or 4 years, our industry has been disrupted by the brokers or the intermediaries or aggregators. And they're playing an increasingly important role in the purchase cycle. And they're actively creating churn in our industry because they really benefit from it. It's a heavily regulated industry, and probably the government is one of our biggest stakeholders. They have, over the last 18 months, they've introduced 3 new pieces of legislation that significantly changed our business. They also have the government-funded carrot of the Australian government rebate, which gives you up to 40% of your health insurance back. And then they've got a couple of sticks that they also use to encourage participation. There's lifetime health cover loading, where you can pay up to 70% more if you don't take out health insurance by the time you're 31, and then the Medicare levy surcharge, which they penalise you if you don't have health insurance at all. We're not even allowed to set our own prices. They have to be approved by the government, and they're released on the same day every year, 1st of April. We also have a system called community rating, and that essentially means no matter how ill you are or bad a risk, we have to give you health insurance. We can't refuse to sell you, and that's quite unique in health insurance globally. We know this change coming as well. So the coalition have made no secret about the fact that they plan to sell off Medibank Private. So we know that's going to change our industry again, where we have an existing slow government big business that's going to be privatised. And the key point I want to kind of get out of this is that, look, we're an established company, been around for quite a while in a traditional sector, and it's not really the natural place for innovation. But for us at NIB, digital is a huge focus for us, and we really want to try and play at the forefront of that space. We were the first health fund in Australia to launch a mobile claiming solution. It's possibly even globally. And in the last 4.5 years, so the time I've been at NIB, we've gone from a place where 1 in every 2 initiatives has an online focus, and that typically was just a landing page, to now pretty much every bullet point on our strategic plan has an online component. A lot of them are online only. And one of the big challenges we have is to be able to satisfy the demand or appetite for delivering things digitally we needed to change the way we worked. Historically, if someone had an idea in the business, we wouldn't be able to get it sized quickly and understand whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. And we'd have to go off and produce detailed specifications and spend up to weeks of time planning out what we thought we wanted. Unfortunately, what we found out is by the time we'd produced that spec and then started talking to developers or other people, we'd find out that it was going to take us 2 or 3 times as long as we thought it would. It was not technically possible, or it just wouldn't work. And we'd wasted weeks and weeks of our effort just getting that far and not being able to proceed. So we had to completely rethink the strategy we took for delivering new features.
Okay, so this book. Let me go back. This book was incredibly influential for us at NIB. So many of the ideas and concepts that Eric talks about in this book have been kicking around for quite a while, but he really crystallized them and gave them a vocabulary that's now part of the vernacular at NIB. The big thing that Eric talks about is that we're actually going to try and stop taking big bets. We need to move from the qualitative assessment that we use for strategy and get more quantitative about it. And the best way to do this really is to take a more scientific approach to how we actually do strategy. This means having a hypothesis, setting up a cheap experiment, get the results, and then determine if the hypothesis has been upheld or disproven. So if it's disproven, then we might pivot and try something different. And ultimately, we take that learning and then we repeat the process. So while we're building our products, or maybe our products are out in the wild, we need to iterate to improve it. This is where the experimentation comes to the fore. No longer can we be wedded to our original ideas. We must always test them and have them evolve. So we use techniques like guerrilla testing, user testing, A/B testing. We use analytics and surveys to try and give us that feedback that we need to help us make decisions. This allows us to get to a position of validated learning, and this helps us to make quantitative decisions about strategy and determine what to do next. So when we're building something new, so let's say it's a new website or a major feature that we're providing to our customers, we need to consider what is the minimal viable product, or the MVP, before we can actually release it. So how do you know what MVP is? Well, it's the intersection of minimal and viable. It has to have value to our customers, but it can't be gold-plated. So established businesses, which is what we are, we tend to overcook this. We tend to gold-plate actually what we try and give our customers. We tend maybe give them too many features up front. And that's generally because we have a lot of internal expectations of people wanting everything right away. So, executing strategy. For us, this plays out via software development. All right, so this is the more traditional waterfall approach to software development. And incumbent organizations like us, we tended to use the waterfall. This tends to be pushed by industry-recognized project management methodologies like Prince2 and PMBOK. It tends to focus more on human efficiencies over speed and quality. It assumes that we know exactly what we are doing each step of the way, and that we don't need to respond to feedback during the process that may change the plan. It also, more importantly, it assumes that what we are delivering is correct, and that only maintenance changes would be required. So if we're a long way off the mark in our requirements, well then good luck in fixing it when time you get to your customers, because you'll probably run out of money. So this is where NIB was pretty much 18 months ago. So this is the Stasi Matrix. You'll see, I'll just explain first. I think the really important thing is that when you're doing software development, you need to pick the methodology of how you actually develop software that's congruent with how you're determining strategy, because they really do feed off each other. So this Stasi Matrix is a great way of helping you understand what methodology you should be using. So the axis here are the requirements and the technology, so the what and the how. And then the spectrum is really whether we actually really understand what we're doing, or we understand how we're going to do it. And generally, when we're in inspect and adapt mode, which tends to happen quite a bit, we're much more in this complex phase, or anarchy phase. And this is mainly because producing effective software is just as much a social exercise as it is technical. And when people, so that's either teams, our internal teams, or business units, or stakeholders and customers are in the mix, you can guarantee that we are pushing more into the complex space and beyond. So we prefer to use agile approaches, in particular the Scrum product management framework. So it's one of the biggest reasons that we do this is that it's great for speed. The goal here is throughput over utilization. So one thing I find interesting is that in established orgs, we tend to trick ourselves into thinking that person utilization is far better than throughput, but throughput is primary. So the focus here is on constantly delivering working software that has business value. And the quality is baked into what we're doing because we have lots of feedback loops built into this process. And we can react to change at different levels. So it might be an individual reacting, the team, the project overall, or maybe our overarching company strategy. Agile brings the uncertainty to the beginning of the project and calmness as you get closer to the date. So we have a plan, but we know it's going to change. Our work items, and under this way of working, are actually releasable features. They're not project artifacts. And that's because we're actually looking to actually deliver value to our customers as opposed to follow a plan. One big switch that has to happen to work in this way is that you need to change the way your teams are structured. So traditionally, teams used to be much more aligned on competency bases, like BAs, designers, developers, and testing teams. Now we actually have cross-functional teams that are aligned much more to business lines. The primary focus has to be delivering business value. The secondary focus is how competent you are at doing it. Another big thing for us is that collaboration is king. So, and also co-location is a secret ingredient in making collaboration happen. Not only is this team co-located and cross-functional, but the product owner is also sitting with them, helping them and providing clarification along the way. So all four of our teams, we have four online teams at NIB, all four of those teams are sitting actually all on the same floor as well. And so that way they get to collaborate with each other across teams as well. We also have, our teams have clear roles. We have the product owner who decides the what, the team who decides the how, and we also have the Scrum Master who ensures that we all stick to the process and stay disciplined. We each specialize, but we're encouraged to be generalists as well. And we do lots of talking. So here's an example of the daily stand-up that we do every day. Our workspace is quite visual, and it's very tactile, and we'd like to stay immersed in our area to stay focused. It makes for a messy workspace, and it's one of these things which is interesting, right? So one of the cultural changes that you can butt into when you actually try and change this way of working is that people don't like you putting stuff on walls. But it's really important to break through that and allow your space to be a bit messy and be like a workshop. Another fundamental thing for us is team empowerment. This is a big cultural change, and it really challenges the traditional command and control structures that we're used to. This empowerment not only gives the team control over the how, but it also gives them control over the how much. This is really important because if you don't empower your teams, the teams aren't able to move fast, and yet what we're trying to do here is deliver quickly. This can seem really uncomfortable at first for management as well, but it's amazing how important it is and how much people increase their motivation when they're more in control. So we can only operate this way over a sustainable period by employing extreme programming engineering practices. So these are highly disciplined practices, including pair programming and test-driven development. They allow us to be agile and flexible without being reckless and compromising our quality as the product evolves. Also, the team, we also look for continuous improvement to be built in as well. So after every sprint or time box period of work that we do, the team discusses what they can do next time to be more effective, as there's always going to be a better way to get things done. This aspect is really critical, and it helps to create a learning organization, not just in what we do, but also in how we do it. Getting started. I think the first thing really when you get started is you've got to get help. It's a really fundamental change to start working in this way. NLB's been on the path for 18 months now, but it takes a lot of effort to get there. So you need guidance. You get consultants, get coaches, do a project together. Don't do a really important project, but do a pretty significant one. Learn from the experience and adapt. So internal help or external help, you just need someone who is a practitioner who will keep you honest and has experience in how to get through some of the more challenging situations you're going to confront. Especially when you're getting started or when you're getting deep into something and then you actually want to revert back to how you used to work. You need those people to help you stay honest. Another big thing I think is to go for the disruptive change. This is not a softly approach. You need to make a change and make it big. Go for the idealistic way of how you want the company to work or how you want your teams to work. And then compromise back from there when you need to, but being careful not to fall back too far. This is where the consultants can really help as well, actually, because they actually sort of legitimize, they're a legitimate catalyst for you to make the big change, as they're not wedded to your previous practices and structures.
So I'm going to kind of bring it back to explain how this has helped us at NIB. So this was the first NIB site. It's 16 years old and probably still stands the test of time. About 5 years ago, we had a major release of our website. We called it NIB Online 3, which is the one after NIB Online 2. And that was a waterfall project, and we didn't actually know what we wanted. And we ended up with this site. And we were very proud of it, and it worked very well for us as a business. But in our wisdom at the time, we decided we needed a content management system, and we chose SharePoint. And because we didn't really know what we wanted, we've been fighting with it ever since, and it's definitely hampers our efficiency. About 18 months ago, a little bit longer than that, we had enough. It was becoming counterproductive to continue to work with this. And we proposed a business case to rebuild everything from the ground up. So throw away the infrastructure, all of the software, all of the applications we built on it, and start again, which was a really unique opportunity and an exciting project for us there. Our first deliverable was a big piece of upfront design, and we went to market to try and find someone to help us with that. And we were really, really fortunate in that we had ThoughtWorks on our shortlist. And at the first meeting we had with them, they told us we were being stupid. They told us it wouldn't work and we were going to throw money away. And fortunately for us, we actually listened to them. We threw out our plans and started again. And then shortly after that, the business decided that they were going to relaunch all of their products, and we had 9 months to get a web solution to support us. So the clock really started ticking for us there. It was also really good because we hadn't just spent 2 or 3 months designing how we'd sell our old products, which would have been redundant. So we had to then look at scaling teams. So in NIB, we had to find about another 16 to 18 people, a mix of designers, developers, analysts, QAs, enough people that we could get at the throughput we were looking for. We were immediately forced to take a MVP or a minimum viable product approach because we literally didn't have time to do anything else. And whilst it was challenging for us, it was really good because it really introduced discipline into scope. When you can only do so much, you're really forced to choose the important things. And for the first few months of this project, it felt like the entire business was on fire. Every day, every hour, there was something going wrong, something slowing us down, something that we had to overcome. But the great thing was we had this visibility of all of these problems. And we really knew what we needed to fix. So we held fortnightly showcases where we got the entire business and we invited the entire business to go and see what we were doing. To get people there, we bribed them with lunch. This was at the beginning of the project, so we had budget at that point in time. The lunches have now dried up. But it was really, really valuable as we got feedback from those key stakeholders who were involved in the project. But we also got feedback from those people who we hadn't thought to involve or didn't think they needed to be involved. And that was really valuable. Also, the team got recognition, so people could see the actual real progress we were making on a fortnightly basis. We also didn't want to end up in the same place we were at the end of NIB Online 3, to have a whole load of issues that we had to spend forever fixing up. And in fact, we never fixed them all. There's a concept called tech debt, which is problems that you know you're introducing as you build something. We made sure that we prioritize these tech debt stories, as we call them, to make sure that they got fixed and we could keep moving quickly after our first major release. As we got closer to the launch date, I felt calmer than I have ever done for a project before. We were completely in control. We knew that we would hit the launch date, and we also knew what trade-offs we could make if something came up. So we launched on time, and then 2 weeks after launching, we released the next additional features. We've been doing that pretty much every week since then. So as far as the lessons we've learned, like Trent said, do a small project first. Something that allows a team to get something into production, but something that's not too critical. So all of the issues and learnings that you will get out of that don't matter. Co-location, again, is key. But it's not just within the teams. Get the people around the teams involved in the team. So even if they're just spending 1 day a week with the team, that you get that communication and people are really aware of what's happening. For us, we needed to formally define the role of product owner. We wanted to give these product owners weight in our traditional organizational structures so that they could get the actions. Essentially, they're part of the team, but they're not part of the team because they are beholden to the rest of the business and the interface to the team to make sure that we're doing what's important. We aligned our teams to business lines or executive functions because it was making it easier to prioritize. Previously, we'd have a team which would have about half a dozen high-level business stakeholders all competing for their own work to get done, and it just didn't happen. Listen to the feedback you get, especially internally, but look for it externally. Every 2 weeks, we get 4 or 5 random people in off the street who look at what we're building and tell us whether they'd use it, what they think is clever, stupid, good about it. And the other thing is, don't be prescriptive about how these teams work. You need broad guidelines, and for us, the Scrum framework is what we use. But we have about 10 teams across NIB now running Agile. They're all running differently. They all have their different ways of managing each of the components, but they are all very aligned with each other. And they listen and learn to each other to try and make themselves faster. And there's this kind of competitiveness about who can be more efficient around this process. We use rotation as a strategy. So we will move people from team to team, predominantly to allow us to scale up or scale down teams based on requirements, but it's also a way to get knowledge transfer happening organically. And one of the key benefits we've found is that typically prior to being agile, you'd get a new starter, and within about 2 to 3 months, they become useful. What we've found over the last 18 months is that people are useful to us within 2 weeks. They're actually actively contributing to small pieces of functionality that we're working on, and this is a huge benefit for us. So where are we now? So about a year ago, there was 20 people in Trent and my team. There's now about 45. Staff retention is no longer really an issue. People see our company and the way we work is a really good place to work. We learned so much, both about what is holding the team back or how the business is running, and we get so much feedback, and we really identify and quantify issues early so we can fix them. We've structured our organisation to support this way of working, not the other way around. We've got empowered and engaged teams who own their own work and feel in control. But also, from a business perspective, we're in control. We know exactly what we can trade off against, and we've got really efficient mechanisms to size the random ideas that are generated every day to understand if they're a good random idea. We're now agile, but we're still evolving. It will never end, and we'll always learn better and smarter ways of doing things. And that's it from us. Thank you for your time.